Hello everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp, and today episode where we revisit the games that we've reviewed over the last, month or so. It's been a bit of a while since we did the last one, just with the Switch 2 coming out, and it kind of changes the lineup a bit, but we've got some great games to talk about.
Yes, we will go through all of the Switch 2 games that we reviewed through the month of June. So 24-ish launch day releases. We got to a few of them, and not all of them obviously, but we will rank them from lowest to the highest, of course, through that month.
Now, I do want to say a lot of our audience don't have Switch 2, and we are fully aware of that. As new games come in, we are trying to get some hands-on time with them and showcase them in certain ways. For example, there's that Ruffy game that's just come up. I'd love to give that a go and possibly get a full review out for that one. But with the Switch 2 having just dropped, there were a lot of reviews that we've kind of got out the door. So what games did we review and how did they score? Well, let's find out.
So in 7th place for the month then we had Raidou Remastered. So this was initially a PlayStation 2 game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's part of the Shin Megami Tensei series, and this is an ARPG basically that's been, as the title would imply, remastered for the Switch 2.
Yeah, an interesting one because it also launched at the same time on Switch 1. So you've got like these two versions of essentially the same experience, but it runs well on either. It's a nice way of playing it, and it's actually reminded, I think, both of us that it would be nice to see a sequel to the action style of essentially Shin Megami game.
Yeah, so you still have your demons, you still recruit them, you do the same moves that you would see in a Shin Megami Tensei game, but you don't have the turn-based nature of it. It is instead action-based, of course, and it is interesting to see it play that way. I mean, obviously, if you've played it before, you'd know all about it, but it wasn't one that I'd played, and I did really enjoy it. I must say, as Mark said, ran well, 60 frames per second. The biggest issue really was just the price. It was pretty expensive, albeit still a decent game. It's just obviously a launch title. People have just paid a lot of money for a console. If you're picking just one game, with no offence meant to it, it's probably not going to be this one just yet. And with all that said, it got a SwitchUp score of 77%.
In joint 5th then, we've got Hitman World of Assassination, which is a series that I've played for decades over on PC. And then they kind of went to these more modern ones with Hitman 1, 2, and then 3. And then World of Assassinations brought them all together under one umbrella and then added in these arcade contracts that are very cool. Now, it was great to play this on Switch for a number of reasons. Firstly, you get to replay some of your favourite levels, but secondly, it's completely up to date, and I can't remember a time we had a current game that was right there in line with all the other platforms, kind of this cross-progression feel to it. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Now, the only issue, it's not really, I guess it is an issue. Some areas, the performance can dip down a little, you know, in those massive areas. The engine itself can render thousands of people on screen at the same time. And yeah, there are a couple of places where it drops down. But generally, performance was fine. You're looking at about between 40 and 50 frames per second. And it's that classic Hitman gameplay, going around plotting out how you're going to off someone. Yeah. I'll say it like that in case YouTube get onto our case. And that's where the magic came from, the complete sandbox, spend a bit of time. I love the arcade contracts. I have to say, for whatever reason, I didn't play those over on PC. And just having that one life to do everything adds a lot of pressure and excitement to the experience. The Hitman World of Assassination on Switch 2 scored 87%.
So joint 5th, as we said, so the other game scoring in with that was Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, which, similar to Raidou, the first one we mentioned, also had a Switch 1 release, possibly just before, I think it may be a week or so before.
Yeah, this is nice because we have reviews of both, as Glen says. It's just really gives us the full picture. And whichever platform you're playing it on, it's great. You've got the real-time action combat. On Switch 2, you've got a lovely mouse mode implementation for when you're doing your farm building and your sim life elements that works great. And you can actually ride around on this dragon and like move between the seasons. That's the area that's quite different to other titles in this genre. Rather than having to wait for summer to arrive or winter, you unlock a whole spring area and then you move on to like the autumn to the winter. They have their own locations. And that actually was good because you could switch between the seasons that you wanted to and build up these separate towns, each of which had its own god guardian that you kind of had to work, not work for, but you help them out of a situation and then they help you on your main quest. Good game this, I enjoyed it a lot actually. I thought the combat that had different weapons tied to it was surprisingly good. Like, I know this series had veered towards combat in the past. This is definitely the best version of the combat system.
It's just interesting to see. I think the Switch 1 version got a low 80s, 81 potentially, but the difference being obviously performance and just how much better the controls felt and the gameplay to a degree with that mouse implementation. So yeah, if you do have a Switch 1, still a very good game, but that's the difference.
Yeah, and as you say, 60 frames per second, huge improvement. Yeah. That got a SwitchUp score of 87%.
Into fourth place then, and we had Street Fighter 6. This was the one I was most looking forward to in terms of the launch games, of course, for the Switch 2. And I'm happy to say that it runs very well on the Switch 2. The fights themselves are 60 frames per second. You have the World Tour mode, of course, which is kind of your story mode, but it's very different to what you may expect of a story mode these days in a fighting game. Almost harken back to things like Mortal Kombat Deception and things like that that used to do these more open world, you know, in inverted commas, sections. And the problem, or one of the problems here, was that these sections aimed for 60, but then when you got into a fight in this mode, it went down to 30, which just seemed a very odd choice. But aside from that, you know, the just general battling, if you're going online or playing versus or arcade mode, of course, absolutely flawless performance in terms of those fights. You know, a large roster of characters, looks fantastic. This is the Year 1 and 2 edition, so it has obviously the DLC from Years 1 and 2, and Year 3 is on the way in the future, so there'll be more characters to come.
Yeah, this had some cool features, like that during those online sections you could actually jump onto an arcade cabinet and play classics, couldn't you?
You could, yeah, and you could kind of watch other people's fights, you know, almost line yourself up as if you just put your money on an arcade cabinet waiting to go. Yeah, great game. If you love your fighting games, this is a no-brainer really. Decently priced as well, I would say, and with all that said, it got a SwitchUp score of 90%.
In joint second place then, we have Fast Fusion from Shinen Multimedia. Great game. They've obviously had this series running for, well, all the way since the Wii, I believe.
It was on the Wii, yeah, it was.
And they've gradually iterated and improved things. And this is the best version of their formula so far. You've got a few interesting ideas. You shift between the two colours to get the correct boosts. But you could also jump, which was, well, initially a bit tricky, but you kind of got to grips with it and it added a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just me personally, I would have preferred if you never had to jump, but you could jump for shortcuts. That's just me, because I found my eyesight was failing me a bit when it comes to actually looking out for the parts where there was a jump coming. But saying that, the racing itself is fantastic. Again, 60 frames per second. I'm not surprised this is this high, because I've played the series before and it is a great series. It's just nice to see it this high because it was certainly one of the cheapest launch day games, wasn't it?
It was. I was surprised to see it this high.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be a nice lick of paint, you know, and the gameplay would be pretty average. But then they released the free DLC that added like, I don't know, 20% more tracks, something like that. And you had the fusion mechanics that I didn't expect, where actually you can really dig deep into those and combine two vehicles to make the perfect one. Yeah, it was just had more depth than I expected.
Yeah, for sure. And as Mark said, it does have that free DLC now available to it, which is lovely to see. And that got a SwitchUp score of 91%.
The other one in joint second is Cyberpunk 2077 that also has the Phantom Liberty DLC included on it. And that's where I started because I completed this game before elsewhere. Jumped onto the Phantom Liberty DLC, which is notoriously difficult to run, and was pleasantly surprised overall by just how good of a port CD Projekt Red have done here, particularly considering the diabolical launch that the game had originally. I bought this one on PS, I want to say 5 or 4? Or was it PC? I can't even remember, but I do remember sat there loading it up at midnight and being like, what the heck? My character's head disappeared.
Oh dear.
I was like, oh no, oh no. So it's a great way of playing it on Switch 2, and the whole thing being on the cartridge is just a big win for them.
Yeah, fair play to them for being one of the few that did that.
Overall, that one got a SwitchUp score, as I say, of 91%. which takes us on to our number 1 for the month, and that is Fantasy Life. The Girl Who Steals Time. Was it Fantasy Life I?
Yeah, The Girl Who Steals Time, which is another one, of course, that did release on the Switch 1 as well. And this was an upgrade path, but it's very, very cheap, isn't it? It's like a couple of £2.
Yeah, £2.40, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
We reviewed the original again, and the upgrade path was so stupidly cheap. We were like, oh, let's redo it, you know, for those that are going to be getting the Switch 2. And if you missed that review of this one, it's just great. This comes out and it seems to improve upon the formula that people loved. There's a job system that you can almost go in any direction but never feel overwhelmed, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, and you can switch at any point, which makes that easier. If you feel you've made a mistake, for want of a better way of putting it, you can just change to another job, which is great that they've made it so accessible. This one certainly is just so cheap that it's, you know, that's the way forward, hopefully, for other companies, because it was great to see. And of course, one of the reasons that it's scored so highly, because that value is just so worth it if you've already bought it for the Switch 1 that only released a couple of weeks prior.
Yeah, absolutely. That one got a SwitchUp score, well deserved, of 92%, and it did run at 60 FPS for like 99% of the time. Now, there probably could be one more game on this list that I revisited, which was the Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy, what's it called? I don't know, Switch 2 version. I made an absolute balls up with that because I rebought the game rather than the upgrade path. But I will say, it was a dodgy way you had to do the upgrade.
It wasn't very clear, was it?
You had to go through the game menus and stuff, and it didn't like pop up and go, hey, by the way.
Yeah.
It didn't tell me that at all.
Yeah, they need to make sure they get this right because it is confusing. You know, same as the game key cart thing was confusing before it launched. Just come out and make these things so nice and clear so people aren't wasting their money. It's not fair otherwise, you know.
I completely agree, and I think there should be a clear tier system, like gold, silver, bronze, and like, you know, your gold costs you 15 and then your 10 and you're like 2 or something.
Yeah,
just keep it consistent.
Every game should be accessed the same way.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to the developers to implement how you access their upgrade path. Just have it standard and then there's no complications. With all that said though, that's the games that we reviewed, well, last month now, June of course, and we'll have more to come in the month of July, I'm sure. Don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credit to pick any of these games up, you can get your eShop cards from our website, switchup.gg, and doing so will get you 5% of your purchase price back as cash back. And there are links down there to places such as PlayAsia, where you can use our link and code and you'll get yourself a bit of money off there, again 5%. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.